The rain fell like it wanted to wash the truth off the earth that night. Hard, relentless, tasting of metal and sorrow. A woman stood by the balcony of a dimly lit hotel room, her silhouette trembling under flashes of lightning. Her eyes were swollen, not from sleep, but from betrayal. The kind that crawls beneath the skin and makes you wish you'd never trusted anyone with your heart. Below her, the city buzzed, car horns, laughter, the echo of nightlife, but up here, silence was loud. She clutched a small phone in her hand, screen cracked, messages still glowing. One voice note kept replaying in her mind, his voice, calm, cold, familiar. Greater than, you knew this day would come, Amina. Don't hate me for surviving. Her breath hitched. That voice once promised her forever, whispered under mango trees, in moonlit nights, when love was still young and power seemed distant. But now, those same words felt like knives dipped in honey. She dropped the phone on the floor, the sound sharp, echoing in the hollow room. A single envelope lay open on the table, papers inside marked confidential, stamped with the emblem of a political party. Her secrets, her handwriting, her downfall. Somewhere across town, cameras flashed, reporters shouted, and a man stood tall in a black suit, smiling as he shook hands with those who had paid for the very secrets she'd once trusted him to keep. The rain kept falling, the world kept turning, and in that cruel rhythm, one heart broke so completely, it promised never to love again. Because sometimes, betrayal doesn't come from your enemies. It wears the face that once kissed your tears away. And that was how Amina's world began to end. Her name was Amina Kessi, 28 years old, born in the warm heart of Kisumu, where the air smells of wet earth and roasted maize after rain. She grew up by the lake, in a one-room house that hummed with radio prayers every morning and laughter every evening. Her mother, Mama Ruth, sold handmade baskets at the roadside. Her father had died young, one of those names whispered with pride and pain at the same time. Amina had learned early what hunger sounded like, not just the one in the stomach, but the one in the soul, that ache to become someone, to break the invisible line that kept people like her watching the world from the other side of the glass. Every morning, she walked past the grand buildings in town, polished floors, cold air conditioning, men in suits who didn't look twice at her. She told herself one day she'd be in there too, not as a guest, but as a name people respected. She carried her dreams like fire inside her, carefully, so the wind of life wouldn't blow them out. Years later, through scholarships and sleepless nights, she made it, a journalist, working for the Dawn Chronicle, one of Nairobi's most respected news outlets. She wasn't rich, not yet, but she was seen. Her stories spoke for the poor, the forgotten, the mothers who buried hope along with their children. People listened when Amina wrote. But behind that fire was a secret. She feared loneliness more than failure. You could see it in the way she lingered at cafes after interviews, how she smiled too long at kind strangers, how she wrote about hope even when she didn't believe in it anymore. And then, he came. David Embel, a rising politician with eyes like ambition, sharp, unreadable. He met her after a press conference, her questions too honest, too direct. Instead of anger, he offered her a smile. Greater than, you have courage, he told her. People like you change nations. It was the kind of sentence that could melt the walls she had spent years building. In time, he became her world, calling her, my voice of reason, sending her flowers with notes that said, you remind me what truth feels like. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that love and purpose could live in the same story. Their weekends were quiet escapes, road trips to Naivasha, sunsets shared in silence, dreams whispered under mosquito nets. He promised her everything, not in gold, but in trust. She gave him her words, her heart, and, eventually, her secrets, about the corruption cases she was investigating, about names too dangerous to write down yet. She didn't know then that in the world David lived in, trust was currency, and she had just handed him her fortune. Amina's heart beat with faith. David's beat with strategy. And between them stood a love that would either change everything, or destroy them both. Began on a bright morning, the kind that should have carried peace, sunlight spilling through her curtains, the hum of matatus outside, children laughing somewhere down the street. Amina was sipping her tea, typing the last lines of her new article, a piece exposing a network of illegal land deals involving powerful businessmen and local officials. She didn't know her hands were shaking until a drop of tea spilled onto the keyboard. Her phone buzzed once, Twice. Then again. At first, she thought it was another source. But when she picked it up, her heart froze. It was a message from an unknown number, followed by 3 pictures. One of her laptop screen. One of her and David, laughing together in her apartment. And the last, a copy of her unfinished article, signed with a warning. Greater than, truth has a price. Choose wisely, Miss Kessie. Amina's throat dried. Her pulse kicked against her ribs. She looked around her tiny living room, suddenly unsure if she was alone. The air felt thick, like the walls were listening. Minutes later, her phone rang again, David's name flashing across the screen. Relief flickered, then faded. Greater than, Amina, his voice said, low, tight. Don't publish that story. You don't understand who you're dealing with. David, how did they? Just trust me, he cut in. I'll fix this. Delete everything, please. But his tone, it wasn't the voice of a man protecting her. It was the voice of someone cornered. She closed her laptop, trembling. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed every memory, every time David borrowed her flash drive, every time he glanced over her notes, every question he'd asked about her sources. And then came the news, 2 days later, on every channel, every screen in the city. A major corruption scandal had broken wide open, but the story wasn't hers. The byline read David Embel, and the report used her exact research, every detail, every word, twisted to protect the guilty and glorify him as the hero who uncovered it all. Her name was never mentioned. Her reputation vanished overnight. The newsroom whispered. Some called her careless. Others said she'd sold her story. But what broke her most wasn't the betrayal, it was seeing him on TV, smiling under the bright lights, thanking anonymous sources for their courage. The man she loved had turned her truth into his ladder. That night, as rain began to fall again outside her window, Amina made her choice, the kind of choice that turns love into vengeance. She whispered to the dark, her voice trembling but sharp as glass. Greater than, if he sold my secrets for power, I'll show him what truth can cost. And from that moment on, there was no going back. The days that followed blurred into one long ache, silence, whispers, and the slow realization that Nairobi had swallowed her whole. Where once her name stirred respect in the newsroom, now heads turned away when she walked in. Her editor avoided her eyes. Her colleagues smiled with pity, that sharp kind of pity that slices your pride and leaves it bleeding. Her desk was moved, her assignments dried up, and by the end of that week, she was politely asked to take unpaid leave. Amina didn't fight it. She just gathered her files, her notebooks, her once sharp identity, and left. Outside, the city's sun mocked her, too bright, too alive. The streets still sang, matatus still roared, vendors still called out, but inside her chest, something had gone quiet. She took the long road home to Kisumu, where the air was thicker and slower. Her mother welcomed her with open arms, unaware that her daughter's heart carried a wound no hug could heal. That first night home, as the crickets sang and the oil lamp flickered, Mama Ruth told her softly. Greater than, the truth may fall silent for a while, my child, but it never dies. Amina smiled faintly. But she didn't believe it. Not yet. A week passed before she saw his face again, on television, standing beside government officials, shaking hands under banners that read, "Rebuilding the Nation." He was the golden boy now. The man who had exposed corruption, the man who gave hope. But beneath the applause, she saw it, that faint tremor in his smile, that flicker of guilt that passed like a shadow. She knew him too well. That night, she started digging again. Quietly. She used fake accounts, old contacts, encrypted drives. The deeper she searched, the clearer it became. The story he'd published wasn't just twisted, it was rewritten. Evidence had been deleted. Innocent people framed. Lives destroyed for votes. And at the center of it all was David, the man who'd once traced circles on her palm and whispered about a better Kenya. One evening, she went to see her childhood friend Otieno, now a tech expert running a small computer repair shop near the market. He looked up from his desk, surprised to see her. Greater than, Amina, you vanished like a ghost. Maybe I became one, she replied. I need your help. He stared at her laptop, then at her face. You're chasing dangerous people again, aren't you? She nodded. They took my work, Otieno. My voice. I won't let them keep my silence. He sighed, wiped his hands on a rag, and said the words only a true friend would. Greater than, then let's make some noise. Together, they traced the origins of David's data leak, emails, call logs, financial transactions. Every thread led deeper into darkness. And the closer they got, the louder her nightmares became. Because every night, she dreamed of fire, her articles burning, her face disappearing from newspapers, and David standing in the ashes, holding her words like trophies. One evening, as she sat by the lake, wind tugging at her hair, moonlight painting her skin silver, she whispered to the water. Greater than, if my father were here, he'd tell me to forgive, but Mama always said forgiveness without truth is weakness. The waves answered only with silence, but in that silence, something ancient stirred. A shadow of memory. Her grandmother's voice, soft as smoke. Greater than, when the truth is buried, child, the ancestors begin to whisper. Listen well, they will show you the way. And that night, she did listen. She dreamed of drums echoing from deep within the water. Of a woman walking barefoot through mist, carrying a flaming pen. When Amina woke, the scent of rain lingered, and in her notebook, words had appeared she didn't remember writing. Greater than, he took your truth to build his kingdom. Take his kingdom to restore your truth. The next morning, she knew what she had to do. She returned to Nairobi. The city felt different now, colder, metallic. Every billboard with David's face was a wound reopening. But this time, she didn't come to cry. She came to expose. She dressed in a plain chitinge, hair tied back, eyes steady. She began visiting people quietly, those who had suffered from David's exposé. Families whose land had been seized. Workers fired. Men jailed for crimes they didn't commit. They all remembered her. They all told their stories. Piece by piece, she rebuilt the truth, not from data, but from pain. And pain never lies. One evening, as she left a small tea shop after interviewing a witness, she noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Engine off. Windows tinted. A voice inside her whispered, they know. She walked faster. The car door opened. A man stepped out, tall, suited, too familiar. David. Greater than, Amina, he said softly. We need to talk. The streetlight flickered between them, throwing his face in and out of shadow. Greater than, you have no right, she hissed. You're making a mistake, he said. These people you're talking to, they'll destroy you. No, she said. You already did. For a moment, his mask slipped. She saw the fear in his eyes, not for her safety, but for his secret. Greater than, walk away, he murmured. Please. I never meant to betray me. She interrupted. To steal my life. The rain began again, sudden and heavy. He took a step closer, voice low. Greater than, you don't understand. They own everything. If you push this, you won't survive. She met his gaze, calm, trembling, alive. Greater than, then I'll make sure the truth dies with me, but not before the world knows what you did. And then she walked away, leaving him standing in the storm, the man who traded her love for power, watching the only person who ever truly saw him turn into his greatest threat. But that night, as she reached home, her door was ajar. Her files, gone. Her laptop, gone. Only one thing remained on her table, a single envelope, marked with the same emblem as before. Inside was a picture of her mother, taken that same day. Her breath shattered. Her knees weakened. This was no longer just about truth. It was about survival. And for the first time, she realized, the war she'd started had reached her doorstep. The storm came without warning. Wind howled through the narrow Nairobi streets like spirits set loose from their graves. Lightning cracked above the skyline, raw, merciless, beautiful. And in the heart of that storm, Amina stood in front of the grand hotel where David was holding his victory gala. His posters gleamed on every wall. His voice echoed from the speakers, promising a new dawn, a cleaner government, a brighter Kenya. She stood outside in the rain, soaked to the bone, clutching a flash drive, her final truth. Everything she had gathered, every file, every recording, every lie. Otieno had helped her rebuild it, hidden behind layers of encryption. She knew once she sent it out, there would be no turning back. But when she tried to upload it, a message flashed across her cracked phone screen. Greater than, we have your mother. Come alone if you ever want to see her again. Her body went cold. The world spun. An hour later, she walked into an abandoned government warehouse on the edge of the city. Inside, shadows. Rain dripped through holes in the roof, each drop echoing like a countdown. David was there, waiting. He wasn't the same man she'd once loved. His eyes were tired now, haunted, hollow. Power had aged him faster than time ever could. Greater than, where is she? Amina demanded. Safe, he said. As long as you hand it over. She lifted the flash drive between her fingers, trembling. Greater than, you think you can silence the truth again. You don't understand, Amina, he said softly. These people, they made me. If I fall, they will kill us both. Then let them, she whispered. At least I'll die with my soul clean. Lightning tore through the roof, casting light over them, two broken lovers standing on opposite sides of justice. He took a step closer, voice breaking. Greater than, I loved you. Then why did you sell me? Silence. Only rain. Only thunder. Dash dash dash. A sudden sound, a car door slamming outside. Footsteps. Armed men entered, faces hidden, rifles glinting under dim light. David turned to them, shouting, No. She's not. But before he could finish, one of them fired. Amina ducked. A flash. David fell, one hand reaching toward her, blood mixing with rainwater on the floor. The men advanced. Amina froze, then looked down at him. His lips trembled, whispering something only she could hear. Greater than, tell them, the truth. She grabbed the flash drive and ran, through corridors filled with echoes and ghosts. Bullets split the air. Metal screamed. Outside, the storm roared louder, as if the ancestors themselves were fighting to protect her. She stumbled into the open field behind the warehouse, mud clinging to her feet. Lightning danced across the sky, not random, but rhythmic, like the beat of a distant drum. The spirits of her grandmother's words filled her head. Greater than, when the truth is buried, child, the ancestors begin to whisper. And now, they shouted. Wind circled her. Trees swayed like they bowed in prayer. A beam of light, pure and blinding, struck the earth behind her, throwing her forward. Her phone slipped from her hand and landed in the mud, screen glowing. Upload complete. All over the city, the files began to spread, to journalists, activists, radio stations. Her truth, finally free. She fell to her knees, crying, laughing, trembling all at once. Rain washed the blood from her hands, the mud from her feet, the fear from her heart. Behind her, sirens wailed. David's men vanished into the darkness. The storm began to fade. The wind softened, like a sigh of relief. And in that moment, she felt it, her father's presence, her grandmother's spirit, her mother's voice calling her name from afar. The truth had spoken, and it had chosen her as its vessel. The end, truth is not a weapon, it is a mirror. Those who dare to hold it must be ready to see both the world, and themselves, without disguise. Amina lost everything that power could offer, yet gained what no power can buy, peace. Her voice, once silenced by fear, became the song that echoed through a wounded nation. Because in Africa, as in life, the rain does not fall to destroy. It falls to cleanse, to awaken, to remind us that justice, though slow, always returns with the storm.